It's time for another Out and About with Jamie Grout podcast, and this time around it's a Best Of podcast with WHO morning personality Jeff Angelo. He's a very interesting fella, and this podcast that originally came out a while back was one of the most listened to podcasts I've ever had, so I think you will enjoy it. First of all, a word from our sponsors, including Ryan's Tire and Auto on First Avenue in Newton. They invite you to come see their ad on the back of Jasper Living magazine. Ryan's Tire is here for this community, and they sponsor softball, baseball, and anything else you can think of. Everything they do is for Newton and Jasper County, and they say thank you so much for all your support from Ryan's Tire and Auto on First Avenue in Newton. Also by Newton Clinic, they're thrilled to welcome their newest member of Newton Clinic. Dr. Schwab practices family medicine and will be seeing new patients starting on April 14th. Make your appointments today at Newton Clinic. Give them a call at 641-792-2112. Also by Mercy One Newton. Saturday, April 26th is the big Mercy One Gala. It'll be held at the DMAC Newton Conference Center at 600 North 2nd Avenue West. They're trying to raise funds for a renovation of the emergency room at Mercy One Newton. The social time and silent auction get underway at 5:30 with the dessert auction and dinner at 7 p.m. and the live auction at 8:30. It's going to be a good time. All kinds of great auction items will be available at the gala for Mercy One Newton. And Tony Pesca, Iowa Realty, give her a call at 641-417-8484. 641-417-8484. If you're looking to buy or sell a home, give Tony a call. It's time for another edition of Out and About with Jamie Grout, and I am excited to talk to the morning show host here at WHO Radio, and that is Jeff Angelo. We're going to get to know Jeff Angelo today. And how would you describe your job at WHO, Jeff?
Well, basically, I'm the morning show host, and what that then involves is understanding what the expectation is of a listener when they come to the morning show. And so people wake up, their alarm goes off, and they come to WHO Radio to be informed. And what's important to their lives? What do they need to hear about that morning? And then once they've heard about those things, what do they think about them? And you have to be a person that is sort of the heads up the conversation, if you will, among the listeners. And so the job involves, of course, a whole host of research, constantly talking and interacting with Iowans, because the key to it all is in that at that small space of time, 5:30 to 9 each day. You have to distill it down to what do people actually want to hear about. There's a lot of news out there, but what's actually relevant to people? And what do they want to talk about? What do they think is the most relevant thing to their life? So my job is to distill that down to figure out exactly what's the most important thing that's going on in people's lives that morning. What do they need to know about? And then lead them in a conversation about it.
All right, fantastic. People ask me about my job. Now, you tell me whether you think this is an accurate description or not. I tell them that I am like air traffic control for the morning show. You think that's right?
Yeah. What happens on the air, and of course, when it comes off flawlessly, people don't know how it happened, but there's so many various elements to the show, and the morning show is the most hectic of the shows because, again, when you turn the radio on in the morning and you're just waking up to your world, you want to know everything that's going on. Now, that's not only conversation and news from me, but newscasts, sportscasts, traffic, other features, things like that. So, yeah, there has to be a person that is coordinating all of that, which is what you do.
Yeah. My old boss, I probably shouldn't call him old, although we're about the same age. He used to work at KMOX in St. Louis, which a station you're very familiar with because you grew up in St. Louis, and we'll get back to that in just a moment. And I said to him one time, I said, at WHO, they have a board op or producer who kind of blends everything together, the news, weather, sports, markets, traffic, guests, callers and stuff. And he said, oh, well, at KMOX, they run their own board. And I mentioned that to Van Harden once because I get together with he and some other radio people once a month. And he said, oh, no, not at WHO. There are too many elements to put together because that's the truth. And it's kind of weird. Listeners do not know. I sit on one side of the glass, you sit on another side of the glass. The news person is 2 studios down. I can't see the news person. You can. Right. The traffic person is on a whole nother side of the 3rd floor. And so it all comes in through the control board that I am running. And you and I talk back and forth quite a bit during the morning show too. Okay, let's go way back to St. Louis where you grew up. What were some of your radio influences when you were growing up in St. Louis?
Well, it's pretty amazing because when you're talking about KMOX, you're talking about some of the more amazing announcers that got their start there. Jack Buck, of course, was there. Bob Costas got his start there. We had a guy named Jack Carney that was at one point thought to be a successor to Johnny Carson. Should Johnny Carson retire one day? Dan Deerdorf started his announcing career at KMOX. So those were influential guys. But then also in St. Louis, you had the top 40 DJs, like a guy named Young Bobby Day, who was fun to listen to and brought a lot of energy and fun to the show. And then Radio Rich was a guy that brought a lot of gravitas to the music he was playing. So St. Louis is one of those cities that drew a lot of media talent. And if you really loved it, you loved listening to them, and you thought about doing what they do, you couldn't have had better influences on the air than those guys to really demonstrate for you on a daily basis what good, informative, and entertaining radio is all about.
I have to, before I get to the hardball questions, I have to give you some props on some things. After having worked with you, has it been a month now? It's something like that.
Yeah. It could have been 5 years.
The props are that, first of all, I come in every morning and there's a rundown sheet of everything that you have prepped for. And boy, you are prepped. You're raring and ready to go every morning. And the other thing is, how you run everything on time. I have a log that I have to fill out every morning, commercials and traffic and all this stuff, sports, and you just like clockwork, everything. And you've done this for a while, so you know the drill, you know how it goes. But even having worked in radio all this time, I know how hard it is to do that sometimes, and you do it like clockwork, and you do it just fine. So some props.
And that's how listeners are developed.
Tell me if I'm wrong. You moved what was your 9 to 11 show into the morning show. Is that correct?
Yeah, basically I was doing Need to Know with Jeff Angelo, and it's interesting because you study what do people want from a show in the different times of day when they're listening to the radio. So the morning show is definitely a different beast than a 9 to 11 show is. But again, over time, particularly with good mentors and good teachers, which I have, you learn how to develop a show into what the morning show audience expects it to be.
Okay, so we talked about you growing up in St. Louis, but then you somehow ended up in Creston, Iowa.
Yeah, so basically, my radio career took me to Creston, Iowa. As you go from station to station to station and you grow your career, you don't know where the opportunities are going to come. And Southwest Iowa was a wonderful home for me for many, many years until I got involved in politics. So I was the morning guy on Creston Radio before running for office, and then left radio to enter basically a 12-year stint in politics.
So you were the morning. How long were you the morning guy in Creston?
Oh, that was a couple of years. Yeah, I started as their afternoon guy, went to midday guy, morning guy. So did the natural evolution in local radio.
Well, hey, so what made you decide you wanted to get into politics in the first place, Jeff?
Well, when I was in high school in St. Louis, I took a political science class, and the part of the assignment for the political science class was to go volunteer for a campaign, and I really loved it. You don't hear people talk about politics being fun in life, but politics is fun. If you really enjoy it, you can enjoy the whole process. So I've always been politically active since I was a teenager. And there was a point, it was probably back in '95, where the Republican Party of Iowa came to me, and they were familiar with me as an activist and said, would you be interested in being the candidate? And really hadn't thought about it up until that point, because I really enjoyed enjoyed radio, I enjoyed my activist role, but I did enjoy a challenge, and I thought, I would be a real honor to serve if I got that opportunity. So I ran for office, and I was successful. I got elected to the Iowa Senate in 1996.
And when you are in the legislature, I'm sure you had some successes that you're proud of. Can you tell us about that?
Well, a lot of it. We reformed, I led a committee that reformed the child sex predator laws in this state. I led a committee that dealt with the controversial issue of hog confinements, which at the time I was in the legislature, it was really hard to get any kind of consensus on that kind of issue. It was so emotional. How do you balance the growth of the hog industry and the change of the hog industry with also protecting the environment and the rights of local property owners? So I was on a bipartisan committee that formed some legislation on that. I was honored to serve as I was appropriations chair for multiple years, in charge of the state budget for the Iowa Senate. That was a real honor to be given that responsibility. I also served as president pro tem, so I oversaw debate in the Senate. So it was a tremendous honor. And I was very happy to always, throughout the years, have a very significant role in everything that was going on in the Senate.
So you talked a couple of weeks ago about getting out of politics, and you got pretty frustrated about politics when you got out. You decided it just was not for you. Tell us about that, Jeff.
Yeah, I always tell this story that when I first started, I did all these Saturday forums that politicians usually do, and they're usually sponsored by local chambers of commerce. And if you showed up and one person yelled at you or made a scene, people were embarrassed by that. By the time I left, it was becoming a regular thing where you'd show up at a Chamber of Commerce sponsored event to do a forum, and people were jumping up and yelling at you and making a scene and trying to go viral. And that was the kind of politics that, like I said, people don't say it enough, that being part of the political process can be a joy and can be a lot of fun. And it just started to become such a stress and such a strain. And the lack of civility that was going on, that's not my personality. I can't get involved in these cutting debates where you try to put the other people down and try to come up with the sharpest insult, or you yell at people or what have you. So it really, the way that politics is being conducted sort of left me and my personality type. And so when I realized that my heart wasn't in it anymore, being in elected office, I just decided to move back into the career that I loved the most, which is media.
So we'll get back to how you came to WHO in just a moment, but you having said that, does it bother you in any way, some of the things that Trump says about his opponents or people he has differences with?
It depends on what he has to say. I feel like sometimes Trump needs to fight fire with fire. I don't think you can let people stomp all over you all the time. And politics certainly has become a pretty cruel game. And sometimes you can't let people stomp all over you, and you have to respond. Some of the ways that he does respond I don't agree with in the past.
Can you give us an example?
Well, anytime that he calls somebody a name, I haven't liked that at all. Anything that cuts really personally, I haven't really liked that at all. I would note that in his second term, he's really stopped doing that. I think that I know people that have worked on his campaign and say that he is a really good listener. And I think enough people have trusted him to say, if you focus on what you want to do and what you're fighting for, rather than a lot of your rhetoric being personal cut downs, I think you'll be more popular and more successful. And I think that's proving out.
Okay, how did you end up at WHO?
Yeah.
I'm curious about that. Going from the legislature, you had some big shoes to fill here at WHO,
Yeah.
did you not?
Yeah. So how I started is I actually started up in Ames, which is an iHeart radio station.
Oh, I used to work in Ames too.
Yeah, KASI.
Uh-huh.
And that brought me to the attention of Van Harden, who asked me to come down and substitute at WHO. And so I started substituting here, and I became the regular substitute host for Jan Michelson, the 9 to 11 host here at HO. I was on the air the week that he had a stroke. And I'll never forget Van Harden walking into the room and his eyes were all red. He'd obviously been crying. And he said, "I'm just going to need you to keep going." And that's all he could say at that moment. I said, okay. So I after that Thanksgiving week, I kept substituting. And it was a week after that Van actually could compose himself enough to tell me why he was asking me to just continually guest host for Jan Michelson, that Jan had had a major stroke. The plan all along was for Jan to rehab and come back. And I actually substitute hosted for him for 2 years.
Wow.
2 years, because HO and the audience, was very faithful to Jan, and everybody wanted him to come back. And when he tried, unfortunately, and he knew this, it just was not, he could not communicate in the way that he wanted to communicate as he had done in the past. And he knew that. Mm-hmm. And so he quietly left, no fanfare, just simply one day he was not going to be on anymore. And that's when I took over permanently the 9 to 11 slot.
From what I understand, Jan's ratings carried over to you, and in fact, I hear through the grapevine that they brought you in the 8 o'clock hour to try to bump those ratings up too. Mm-hmm. And some of the best radio, the most fun radio I've ever heard was when you and Van and Bonnie, and then later on with Max and Amy, in the 8 o'clock hour. How fun.
That was it. I mean, you can't fake chemistry like that. We just liked each other. We had a great deal of affection for each other personally. You can't fake that on the air. And when the audience hears that, they want to hear it, and they want to be a part of it.
So I have to ask you, because Van, I believe, had mentioned to me, is like I say, I get together with he and some other radio people about once a month. When you came on board, apparently there was some talk that you and your ex-wife might be on the air together because I've heard you describe yourself as right of center. Mm-hmm. She was left of center?
Yeah, we did not really talk about being on the air together because she was not a public person. Oh. So it was a treat. She co-hosted with me once, a state fair program, and every once in a while would appear on a social media video, but generally was not a public person, and therefore, there was, from the very beginning, it was sort of sink or swim for me.
All right. What do you like about Trump? What do you dislike about Trump?
Well, I like about Trump his agenda. I think for the most part, I feel that this is he's got a great agenda. And I feel like what is going on right now from a transformation standpoint has needed to go on for a long time. A lot of times when we're talking over the things that he's doing, you say, why has this never been done before? Why haven't we taken a close look at how we spend our money? Why do we give our money to foreign countries? How many employees we have? What do they do? You feel like he is doing something that the government just hasn't done and should be doing. what I don't like every once in a while is just how he puts things, especially if it's a personal way. He gets very personal with people that he disagrees with. But that's just my style. I try never to make people feel small because they disagree with me. So my discomfort's probably a more personal discomfort because I say, oh, I wouldn't have said it that way. I wouldn't have done it that way.
Did it bother you at all that he let the January 6th rioters go?
No, I don't think that he let them go. I felt like that he did tell them to go to the Capitol to protest peacefully. I do think that I've talked about it in the air riot theory where when one person starts to get violent or one person starts to trash, it might inspire other people to do. So I think that was a riot that got out of control. But I don't feel like that it was, I don't think it was his fault. I don't think, I'm a personal responsibility kind of guy. I think that there were people there that got out of control, and I think they were appropriately charged. I think he's right to say that some of them I thought were held in prison way too long for what they did, and because they were in the government building and there was a big emotional sensitivity to all of that. But I don't blame him for January 6th.
What about when he declares himself the king, that kind of thing?
Oh, I don't mind that at all. I think the thing is that we live in an era where politicians are so careful about their talking points that he doesn't mind joking around. And I think it's funny that people will try to take him seriously when obviously I think he's having a little fun. Mm-hmm. In fact, I'll never forget, WHO brought Newt Gingrich to town a few years ago to talk about a wide variety of politics. One of the things that came up was him hanging out with Trump and talking with Trump, and he said the guy is always having fun. He really enjoys what he's doing, and he's having a lot of fun. And there's a lot of sense of humor to what he does. And I think that maybe we're not used to that with politicians, so people get very upset over something he might have said that I kind of recognize as a joke.
Does it bother you at all that Kash Patel says he's going to come after members of the media?
I think that, I think we have to have a free press in this country. And I think it can be upsetting that you have a media that, at times I think can be inaccurate or present one side of a story and not give another side of the story equal weight. Yet at the same time, I think the best answer to free speech that you disagree with is more free speech. We're a free speech country. So if there's free speech and people are engaging in rhetoric that you don't like, there should not be a criminal justice consequence. That's what the founders meant with the First Amendment. You respond to it with more free speech.
Other than the media, the fifth estate, as they say, does Trump have any guardrails?
Yeah, I still think that it's interesting that obviously a lot of what he's doing right now, particularly with executive order, you're going through the lawsuit process, and that's how the process works. You're going to go through the court process, and the court process is going to examine what he's doing from a perspective. And I think a lot of it will go to the Supreme Court, and I have a great faith in the Supreme Court. I think there are folks that try to look at the Constitution and say this is what the founders intended when they wrote the Constitution, and those are the guardrails. And I do think that we do have a proper process. And I just had an attorney on the show a couple of weeks ago, and I was just asking about all of the lawsuits, and he said, Jeff, I think Trump's going to prevail in a lot of them. But he said, this is the process. You do have the right to address grievances in court and have a court rule, take a look at the Constitution, and decide what you can or cannot do. And I think that system works. I think the system remains in place. And I think that's the guardrail.
And, of course, Trump has this tariff situation in mind. Yeah. And, one of the big reasons that he got elected was because of inflation. Mm-hmm. And how long do you think the American public will be patient and keep Trump being so popular before they start saying and pointing fingers at the president. I mean, the president gets the blame if gas prices are too high, if egg prices are too high, whether it is the president's fault or not.
I think the next election. I think that...
You're talking midterms?
Yeah, 2026. I think at that point, the Democrats that are, they're eager to reclaim the majority in the House and the Senate, and that's where the process begins. I think their major case will be that prices have not gone down, the economy is not better because of Trump's leadership, and that's where the American people decide whether or not to hold him accountable. I think you give them to the next election, but when election season really starts in full swing, you start to litigate in front of the American people whether or not you've done a good job on the economy, whether you lowered prices or whether you didn't. And I think that's the way the process works. I think you get held accountable in the next election.
What are some of the other issues that you're passionate about, Jeff?
I just... I'm very interested in the immigration issue because my mom is from Germany, and I think that there is a process to go through to become a legal immigrant in this country, and that immigrants have a role to play. It is amazing to me that there has been an ideological bent in the past few years to say we don't really like immigration policy or law, therefore we allow it to be ignored. And I think one of the things that doesn't get said enough is, but what about the people like my mom who came through the process fairly and became a naturalized citizen of the United States back in 1976? Why are we saying it's absolutely okay for people to come into the country illegally and continue to avail themselves of the services of the country and get jobs here in the country when they have not followed the process the other immigrants have?
Okay, I'm going to play devil's advocate here.
Yeah.
There are those that say if we ship those illegal immigrants out, it will hurt the economy. What do you say to that?
I think that says something about our economy. That if we have actually knowingly built an economy based on illegal immigration these past few years, what have we been doing? I mean, that's a betrayal of the American worker, I think.
Okay. What other issues are you passionate about, Jeff?
I like taxes. I like talking about immigration. Those are the issues that I've always been the most passionate about and love to talk about. I'm a capitalist. I love this system this economic system that the United States exists under. So I have a great deal of passion for economic policy as well as immigration.
You also seem to be passionate about the abortion issue.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I feel like we've devalued life in this country. We often don't think that the policy positions that we take have any greater cultural implications. And I think we have to consider that. When we said it is legal and it is okay if a life inconveniences you to terminate it, what did that say to our culture at large about the value in life in general? And then it starts to lead to a greater debate about the value of human life and the value of each individual person. And so that's an issue that I've always been passionate about, because I say, look, there are bigger, broader cultural implications of putting a stamp of approval on saying, well, that person, that baby is not convenient to you. So it's okay to terminate that baby's life. That's been a hard thing for me to accept.
Are you against abortion in any circumstance?
Yeah, I'm basically against abortion in any circumstance. I think that all life can have value, and I think we can work as a nation to make all life valuable.
Let me tell you, folks, some people on the left think that people on the right don't have a heart. But let me tell you, I witnessed Jeff Angelo just, I believe, last Friday get a little bit choked up when Ivy from Hy-Vee came in and brought a lady in from the Variety Club.
Yeah.
And it seems like children's charities have a place in your heart, Jeff.
Yeah, and I think I'm a dad and I'm a grandpa, and I feel like when you've got kids and whatever has been a barrier to them in life, I always have a heart for that, and for the people that try to make a child's life the best it possibly can be. I'm always very affected by that.
Well, people can catch Jeff Angelo 5:30 to 9 weekday mornings. How can people check out your podcast?
Yeah, so if you go on the iHeartRadio app and you look for the WHO Morning Show with Jeff Angelo, there are some segments, some of the most ear-catching segments from the program, Monday through Friday there. And but always say, just stream me live, 5:30 to 9, Monday through Friday.
Well, I got to tell you, it's a pleasure working with you, Jeff. And I have to thank my trainer, Chloe.
Yeah.
She was an excellent teacher. I told her the first week, I said, I don't know if I can do this job, because it's not easy. It really isn't, because it's kind of like a three-ring circus going on in there, and there's a lot of different moving parts to the job. But now I think I have it down. How am I doing on this?
Yeah, absolutely. I think you're getting it down. I mean, there is a lot of pieces and buttons. You just have to, over time, get it all down.
Yeah, it works out pretty good now, and I had a few bumps in the road with. Now I'm doing Emery's show too. I'm working 6 hours every day, and occasionally I get a bathroom break in there. But no, it's great. Like I say, WHO to me is not just any other radio station. I tell people, and I don't say this facetiously, that it's the holy grail of radio in Iowa. So it's just an honor working here. So thank you for indulging me and letting me have this time with you, Jeff. And we're going to do a short video podcast here in just a couple moments. But check out Jeff Angelo. Get to know Jeff Angelo on 1040 WHO, News Radio 1040, weekday mornings. And that's going to wrap it up for this edition of Out and About with Jamie Grout.
This podcast also sponsored by the gang at Wesley Life Park Center, and specifically Willowbrook. Make your loved one's day by enrolling them in Willowbrook, a Wesley Life Adult Day Center. Willowbrook on the Park Center campus provides a welcoming and stimulating environment that allows participants to maintain independence while receiving support and encouragement. Social engagement, companionship, and enriching opportunities are provided to give participants a purposeful and fulfilling day. Willowbrook's person-centered care includes exercise focused on total health and well-being, and programming that includes music therapy, pet therapy, guest speakers, outings, and much more. If you'd like to learn more about Willowbrook, call 641-791-4500 to arrange a tour at Willowbrook. Also by Justin Goodfellow, American Family Insurance Agent. Life's better when you're under their roof because their agents can help you choose insurance to help protect what matters most. Life insurance from American Family Life Insurance Company can help financially protect your loved ones by replacing a portion of your income if you pass away. That means your family could have the help they need to continue to pursue their dreams. Contact Justin Goodfellow, agent at Justin Goodfellow Agency, LLC, at 641-792-8438 today. Products not available in all states. American Family Life Insurance Company, 6000 American Parkway, Madison, Wisconsin. Also by Lynette Baker, Halo Branded Solutions, Free Classified Weekly, Westside Java Coffee Bar, and Jersey Freeze. Check out Jersey Freeze in Monroe with all their delicious ice cream frozen treats.
If you've been fouled by your financial institution, then blow the whistle. This is Coach Miles from Advantage Credit Union with some one-on-one for a financial victory. At ACU, you're treated like you own the team because you actually do. Advantage Credit Union offers great deposit rates. You actually earn interest instead of paying a monthly fee at you know where.
Bank shot! Good!
If you live or work in Jasper County or 18 other central Iowa counties, you are eligible to join. Visit us in downtown Newton or online at acuiowa.org. It's a game winner at ACU.
Member NCUA.
Until next time, Grout is out. See ya.